The second of the books on the development of the theory of basic English is Bentham's Theory of Fictions by C.K. Ogden, the author of Jeremy Bentham, 1832 to 2032, editor of Bentham's Theory of Legislation, published in my edition in 1932. This book is a division, basically 50-50 between Ogden and a biography of Bentham, and then an amalgamation of bits and pieces of Jeremy Bentham's writing to create what he calls a theory of fictions. The biography part about Jeremy Bentham is important because as a young child he had to go out to an outhouse. There were no indoor plumbing at that time, and the nurses or maids or whatever tried to get him scared, telling him ghost stories, and they really had an effect on his emotions, that he was terrified of these ghostly thoughts that people had put in their mind. And throughout his life he tried to become more practical, to eliminate things that are what Ogden would call word magic. Just because you say something has a name does not mean it exists. The more normal example is unicorns. Well, what are unicorns? Well, they're phantasmagorical beings. Does that mean they're things? Well, Bentham would go through all of those in his theory of fictions. And the theory of basic English was to start at that level most closely to reality. And in the theory of basic English, there's 850 words in the vocabulary. There are 200 pictured things, and then 400 more general things. Things that normal children of the age of 3 and 4 and 5 would understand. A cow, a plate, these objects of everyday use. Bentham I don't want to say he disrespects Aristotle, but probably he does. Part of the problem with philosophy is that they make categories of different things, and Aristotle made a category called substance, and then he put in things like quantity and these things. Bentham went to the more closer to reality, and he said there are these things. Now there are some things which are like unicorns, which we just have words that they don't exist other than in an imagination. And then there are other things, substances as he called it. So that in Aristotle's point of view, substance was really a categorical theory. And for centuries people would argue about how many angels could dance on the head of a pin, and the priest that I talked to said, well, there could be an infinite number of them because they don't have substance or material substance. Bentham thought of substance as a material substance, but he also accepted the fact that there are things that we cannot know directly, but we can make theoretical constructions about things like numbers. If you have a number of objects, that is a number, or a quantity of objects. Or if you have an object, it must have substance. This would be the direction that Bentham went in, and the fact that there was a lower level closer to reality, and then other things above that were fictions, gave Ogden the theoretical basis to construct a language at the first level with those things that would express all that needed to be known and conveyed in everyday life. And then all the things above that level of concreteness or closeness to reality could be described. Now, there are in basic English words that indicate general things, like a pictured thing. Well, you can picture a cow, and I have one on my website. It is not possible really to picture a mine, which is another basic word, because part of it's above ground and part of it's below ground. But there is a possibility that you could lead some person to that structure, show them what's above the ground, show them what's below the ground, and the human being then could indicate and integrate all of the different parts of the mine into the concept of a mine. So the theory of fictions, partly you have to understand the kind of person Bentham was, his early childhood influences, and particularly the problem with the ghosts, and Bentham's intellectual development of trying to be practical. Utilitarian was the word that was used, but he made that concept perhaps even too theoretical and too far removed from reality for later theorists to adopt. You also have to understand, I think, that Bentham is in opposition to the standard scholastic philosophy throughout those hundreds of years when Aristotle was preeminent in Europe. He was an attack on that. Most people today are still followers of Aristotle because Aristotle now is used more to create a vocabulary or perspective for science. And the perspectives of Bentham, of just tell me what you mean in as simple a language as you can, it seems now that the academic disciplines are trying to make things as complicated as far as the jargon and philosophy are concerned. And if somebody can explain to me why I have the same substance as an angel, to explain what substance is, then maybe I'll reconsider my position and reconsider Aristotle. But until then, I do think that Bentham is the most practical and useful first step to a understanding of the problems of communication and the definition of terms.